Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone is doing well. Today we're going to be talking about Barbara Graham. Graham was born Barbara Elaine Ford in Oakland, California, to young unwed mother Hortense Ford from Santa Cruz, who earned her living through prostitution. On February 23, 1925, Hortense, still unwed, gave birth to a second daughter, Claire Elizabeth. On October 10, 1929, at the age of 23, Hortense married Joseph Wood in Alameda. Hortense, along with Barbara and Claire, surnames were changed to Ford. Hortense and Joseph's son, Joseph Robert Wood, was born on March 27, 1930. However, Joseph Sr. died before his son's birth on January 19, 1930, at the age of 28. Hortense Ford Wood was of Portuguese Azorean descent on her father's side, the original family name having been Furtado. When Graham was 2, her mother, who was still in her late teens, was arrested and sent to reform school. Graham was placed in foster care, in which she alleged that she was beaten and treated poorly. Upon release at age 21, Hortense refused to allow Graham to live with her. Graham was raised by strangers and extended family, and although intelligent, had a limited education. As a teenager, she was arrested for vagrancy and sentenced to serve time at Ventura State School for Girls, the same reform school where her mother had been. Released from reform school in 1939, Graham tried to make a new start for herself. She married Harry Kellhammer, a U.S. Coast Guardsman, in 1940, and enrolled in business college, and soon had her first 2 children. The marriage was not a success, and by 1942 she was divorced. Harry Kellhammer was awarded custody of their 2 sons. Over the next several years, she was married twice more, but each of these attempts at a more traditional lifestyle failed. After the string of failures, Graham is said to have become a worker in the sex trade, as her mother had before her. Reportedly during World War II, she plied her trades as what was known in some circles as a seagull, or a prostitute who flocked in pairs or groups near naval bases. It is supposed that Graham began working near the Oakland Army Base, Oakland Naval Supply Depot, and Alameda Naval Air Station. In 1942, she and other seagulls traveled to Long Beach, California, and San Diego. She was arrested on vice charges in these naval cities and in San Pedro, California. At age 22, with her good looks, red hair, and sex appeal, she worked for a time in San Francisco for a brothel madame named Sally Stanford. She soon became involved in gambling and illegal drug circles, cultivating a number of friends who were ex-convicts and known career criminals. She served a 5-year sentence for perjury as a false alibi witness for 2 petty criminals, and served her sentence at the California Women's State Prison at Tehachapi, California. After her stint in state prison, Graham moved to Reno, Nevada, and then Tonopah, Nevada. She obtained work in a hospital and as a waitress, but soon got on a bus for Los Angeles. There she got a room on Hollywood Boulevard and returned to prostitution. In 1953, she married Henry Graham, who worked as a bartender at one of her frequent haunts. With him, she had a 3rd child named Tommy. Henry Graham was addicted to illegal drugs and known as a hardened but low-level criminal. Through him, Barbara met his friends, Jack Santo and Emmett the Weasel Perkins, both with criminal records. She started an affair with Perkins, who told her about a 64-year-old widow, Mabel Monahan, who was alleged to keep a large amount of cash and jewelry in her home in Burbank, California. Monahan was a retired vaudeville performer who had previously worked with Keith Albee Circuit. Her ex-son-in-law was a 74-year-old Luther B. Shire, a multimillionaire who was well known through his ownership of various gambling clubs in locations such as Palm Springs and casinos in Las Vegas. It is speculated that he had deep ties to various crime syndicates. Monahan's daughter, Iris, had divorced Shire 2 years prior and received the Burbank residence in a divorce settlement. Iris shortly thereafter married a different man and moved to New York, leaving her mother, Mabel Monahan, to reside in their former home. Monahan and Shire had remained close friends after the divorce, and their continued friendship piqued public interest. Gossip and rumors that would later prove deadly. One rumor that was widely circulated amongst criminals and in local bars was that Shire, due to his deep trust of Monahan, had left $100,000 cash stashed in a safe within the residence. Based on Baxter Shorter's confession and John True's witness testimony, on March 8, 1953, Graham had dinner in the San Fernando Valley with Perkins, Santo, True, and Shorter. A safecracker, Shorter stated that he initially did not want Graham to participate because she was a dame, but Perkins convinced him that it was the only way Monahan would open the front door. On the evening, March 9, 1953, Graham reportedly gained entry by knocking on the door and asked to use Monahan's phone due to car trouble. Once Monahan opened the front door for Graham, Perkins, Santo, and True came in behind her, followed later by Shorter. Shorter claimed that when he entered the home, Monahan was already bleeding and her mouth was gagged. The gang tore up Monahan's home looking for the safe, money, and/or jewels, to no avail. True stated that Graham handed a gun to Perkins and told him to knock her out. Shorter claimed that at this point, he threw Perkins to the floor and convinced True to remove the gag because he noticed Monahan was having trouble breathing. True did not mention these events and stated that Graham began to viciously beat Monahan. After the gang left, Santo assumed Monahan was dead. However, Shorter, once alone, purportedly called for help from a payphone. The address given to the operator was incorrect and Monahan was discovered 2 days later by her gardener. The robbery attempt was a futile effort as nothing of value was found in the house. They would later learn at trial that $15,000 in jewels and valuables was located in a purse in the closet. Monahan's daughter, Iris, offered $5,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of her mother's murderers. On March 26, 1953, police arrested and questioned 5 men in connection with murder of Monahan. 3 were known associates of LA gangster Mickey Cohan, along with another man and Shorter. All of the men knew Monahan through Shire, however they were all released due to lack of evidence. Shorter, who was shaken at the thought of going to the gas chamber should the police figure out his involvement, volunteered to turn state's evidence and gave the police details of the Monahan murder and attempted robbery. He stated that he had seen Perkins hit Monahan with the gun and that he was shaken having witnessed the murder. However, Shorter's statement was leaked and he was later kidnapped and murdered by Perkins and Santo after his release from police custody shortly after his confession. Upon hearing of Shorter's disappearance and probable death, William Upshaw, a convicted felon, volunteered to testify before the grand jury. Upshaw testified that he had been in the car with Barbara Graham, Perkins, Santo, True, and Shorter the night prior to the murder, as the group conducted surveillance on Monahan's home and ran through the robbery plans. He stated he decided not to participate out of fear of retaliation from Tudor Shire. Subsequently, John True agreed to become a state witness in exchange for immunity from prosecution. In court, True testified against Graham, who continually protested her innocence. The press nicknamed Graham Bloody Babs, reflecting the public disgust of her alleged actions. Having no alibi, Graham doomed in her own defense when she accepted another inmate's offer to pay $25,000 to the inmate and a friend who would provide a false alibi. The inmate, however, was working to reduce her own sentence, and the friend who offered to say he was with Graham the night of the murder was a police officer. Meeting with Graham to plan the alibi story, he insisted that she admit to him that she had indeed been at the scene of the crime. The officer was recording the conversation. This attempt to suborn perjury, plus the recorded admission that she indeed had been at the scene of the widow Monahan's senseless violence murder, abetted by her previous perjury conviction, completely destroyed Graham's credibility in court. When questioned about her actions at the trial, she said, "Oh, have you ever been desperate? Do you know what it means not to know what to do?" Graham was convicted while the informant was immediately released from jail, and her informant's sentence commuted to time served. The prosecution was led by District Attorney J. Miller Levy. Graham, Santo, and Perkins were all sentenced to death for the robbery and murder. Graham appealed her sentence while at the California Institution for Women in Chino, California. Her appeals failed, and on June 2, 1955, she was transferred to San Quentin State Prison. On June 3, 1955, she was scheduled to be executed at 10 a.m., but that was stayed by California Governor Goodwin J. Knight until 10:45 a.m. At 10:43 a.m., Knight stayed the execution until 11:30 a.m. Graham protested, "Why do they torture me? I was ready to go at 10 o'clock. At 11:28 a.m., she was led from her cell, strapped in the gas chamber. She requested a blindfold so she would not have to look at the observers. Her last words were, "Good people are always so sure they're right." Advised that taking a deep breath after the cyanide pellets were dropped would make her death easier, she replied, "How the hell would you know, you silly rascal?" She was buried in Mount Olivet Cemetery, San Rafael, California. Thank you for listening. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing and liking my channel, and I will see you on the next one.